What is up guys, it's Solheim here, back again with another classic WoW Season of Mastery video. Today we're going to be checking out the Faction Imbalance in classic WoW Season of Mastery. We are going to be doing some census scans on European servers for both Horde and Alliance, and we're going to be looking at the population percentage divide server by server, and we're going to be answering why X faction is dominant, and maybe look at a couple of suggestions as to why or how this can be fixed, and what kind of problems this causes. So we already know that certain factions have obvious advantages in PvE scenarios, and others have advantages in PvP scenarios, so it's all about what kind of activity you are looking for. Alliance has paladins, which is optimal for raiding, especially with the new raid mechanics that are a bit more punishing to melee, meaning that the strategy for Horde, which was stacking warriors and rogues with shamans for Wind Fury Totem, might be less lucrative, which is even more in favor for Alliance players, giving them the freedom to go for a more ranged setup. Horde has a lot of advantages in PvP, but even for PvP we have a lot of players that shifted to Alliance for Season of Mastery, because Alliance had the almost instant Battleground queues in Classic WoW, while Horde had to wait for hours, and this had a kind of opposite effect for Season of Mastery, where now there are so many Alliance players versus a much lower amount of Horde players. That being said, if we do go to PvE servers, we can see a huge faction imbalance where there's 70 to 80% Alliance versus 20 to 30% Horde, showing that Alliance players are more interested in PvE side of the game, while Horde players are more interested in the PvP aspect, at least on a very general basis. Obviously, there's a lot of Alliance players interested in PvP as well, but I do think the fact that PvE servers are so one-sided gives us a little bit of information about what kind of people play on which faction. I also want to do a quick shout out for my gold making guide for Season of Mastery. This is a gold making guide that I've spent countless hours on to help you guys make as much gold as possible in Season of Mastery, so you can afford all of your raid consumables and everything else you need gold for. I cover which classes are good for gold making, I cover professions for gold making and gold farming, I cover 38 different gold farms, and a bunch of investments and other gold making information. So if you want to maximize your gold making potential in Season of Mastery as well as support me at the same time, this is hands down the best way to do that. I've made the guide myself, and any feedback is greatly appreciated through either reviewing it after purchasing it or simply sending me a direct message on Discord. Right now you can get the gold making guide for 75% off using the code 2021, which is the biggest sale yet, and it lasts for the rest of the year, so act quick, because on January 1st this offer is gone. So with that being said, let's check out some census scans. So I've been scanning every single server on the European side, both for Horde and for Alliance, just to find out the server balance or imbalance on all of the servers on the European side. I don't have any account or anything on the US side, so if anyone wants to give me some info for the US, then feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. But for these census scans, while they might not be perfect, they give us a kind of clear indication of something that is going on, and we get like roughly how many people are playing on which faction. And even though it could vary from time to time based on when you are scanning, because it's almost impossible to scan at the exact same time, because it takes a while. So for example, scanning Dreadnought took me 2 hours per faction, so it took me 4 hours in total, or almost 3 hours, to just scan one server, while a server like Bone Scythe, which has like less than 10% of the Dreadnought server, takes like 5 to 10 minutes to scan. So the bigger the servers are, the more time it takes. I couldn't scan them all at the exact same time, but I tried to scan them on the same day in the same time period. So with these scans we have a total amount of players of 27,946, so we are basing these numbers on almost 28,000 players that have been scanned. So let's just cover them one server by a time. So for Dreadnought we have 5,041 Horde versus 11,626 Alliance. This gives us a server split, or a faction split, of 30% Horde and 70% Alliance. For Kingsfall, which is a PvE server, we have a much bigger divide, so we have 1,162 Horde versus 5,036 Alliance. That gives us a faction split of 19% Horde and 81% Alliance. Next up we have Bonescythe, which is the least popular server for Europe by far. We have 317 Horde players. I almost said the wrong thing there, but 317 Horde versus 435 Alliance, which gives us a faction split of 42% Horde and 58% Alliance. That might be the closest to balance we are getting in this video, and we actually have the same percentage split as well for Ironfoe, which is a PvP server, sitting at 1,209 Horde versus 1,653 Alliance, which also gives us 42% Horde versus 58% Alliance. For Quel'Serrar, which is also a PvE server, it is also the unofficial hardcore server, sitting at 217 Horde versus 1,250 Alliance. This gives us a faction split of 15% Horde versus 85% Alliance. So for PvP servers we saw a huge percentage split on Dreadnought, giving us 70-30, so 70% Alliance versus 30% Horde, but for the PvE servers, both Kingsfall and Quel'Serrar, we have over 80% Alliance and 20% Horde on both servers. So Kingsfall is sitting on 19% Horde and 81% Alliance, Quel'Serrar is sitting on 15% Horde and 85% Alliance. So having a faction split like this will create a lot of problems down the line, but there's 4, maybe 5 problems that I want to focus on. So first of all, this will give longer Battleground queues for the minority faction, because, well, theoretically there's less players, meaning, well, if there's more players queuing up, you will get faster queues, or basically it's going to be longer Battleground queues for whoever has the most people in PvP. I think I said the wrong thing at the beginning there, but there's going to be longer Battleground queues based on how many people are queuing up on the opposite faction. So, for example, if there's 20% Horde and 80% Alliance on one server, if everyone queued up for a Battleground at the same time, only 1/4 of the Alliance players would actually get into that Battleground, creating massive queues for those players. That being said though, while Horde is in the minority on most servers, Horde players are also more likely to queue up for PvP, based on what I mentioned earlier in the video, where PvE servers are incredibly Alliance favored, giving us an indicator that Alliance players are less interested in PvP on a general basis. Also, next up, is going to be less balance in open world PvP. This is something that has been plaguing TBC Classic servers for a while now, where even if you just have a 40-60 split, being on that percentage with 40% of your faction feels absolutely horrible. Maybe not as low as 40-60, but definitely 30-70. You will start being outnumbered in the open world all the time, and playing on a PvP server where the faction split is 70-30 already starts feeling terrible. Next up, while a server with full or high population might have a lot of people, it can feel incredibly empty if you're playing on the minority faction, and without a lot of resources to check the faction balance, this could create problems for new players who pick a server solely based on its popularity because they want to play on a living, thriving server, and then they end up on the minority faction, and the server just feels empty. Now, the last one is pretty much that down the line, a faction imbalance will also lead to servers completely dying on the minority faction, at least if server transfers ever become a thing, but even without them, servers might become incredibly one-sided, where the minority faction gathers up on a new server instead, and we end up having Alliance-only PvP servers and Horde-only PvP servers. This is a trend we saw in Classic WoW and TBC Classic, where more and more servers are completely dying on one side, because the minority faction players are transferring to other servers instead. For example, Fairlina, one of the most popular and balanced servers in Classic WoW, sitting at pretty much 50-50 in Classic, maybe even Alliance favored as well, is now completely dead on the Alliance side. So how can I actually fix this? Well, the short-term fix would be to offer everyone one free server transfer, but even that would just lead to what I just mentioned. Horde players will gather on a server where they can be in the majority, and so will the Alliance, but at least this means you won't have to spend money on a server transfer, because personally I think it's ridiculous that Blizzard pretty much creates this problem and then sells you the solution. So if they are going to give us server transfers, at least offer everyone one of them for free. Also, one fix that I have seen on Voldemort servers is that you can choose racial abilities from any of the playable races that you prefer. This means that you wouldn't be forced to play Alliance just so you can get the human racials, and you also would not have to play Horde just to get the Horde. What am I saying? You would not have to play Horde just to get the Orc racials. I do believe this would fix part of the problem, but it's also a thing that takes away a core element of Classic WoW, and personally, I don't like that. That being said, here's a fix that would work, and it's the one I think they should have went with. When opening up the Season of Mastery servers for character creation, they should have restricted how many people could be on which faction. For example, if the server got to 55% Alliance and 45% Horde, they would lock character creation on the Alliance side, never allowing a bigger difference than 55-45. This would create some frustration short term, but would create for a much healthier experience when it comes to faction balance long term. This is also something they can somewhat achieve retroactively with my first suggestion of the free server transfer, where they would make it so you could only transfer your character to a server where your faction represents less than 50% of the population. While this would not fix the core issue of the main servers, it would prevent a chain reaction of every single PvP server becoming 100% one faction. There's a lot of other options so they could add as well, such as giving players certain incentives to play X faction. For example, the less percentage of the servers playing on that faction, the more experience they get while leveling, and the more honor they get while ranking. But once again, that takes away a core element of vanilla WoW in my opinion. They could also add faction changes, but in that case we have the case of shamans and paladins, and there's just too much work to be done around faction changing in Classic WoW, so I don't believe we'll see that anytime soon. Let me know how you think they should fix this in the comment section down below, and that is pretty much it guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like down below, subscribe for more Classic WoW content, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.